Well, heroes. Here we are again talking about the state of comics. The state of comics, in my opinion, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of drama going on right now. It's talking about dealers who are stealing and this, that, and the other thing. And, one of the complaints big time that I get a lot actually in my shop is that a lot of stuff's not priced, but I sell a buttload of comics. And if I could afford to pay somebody every day to alphabetize and price all my books, you couldn't afford to buy my books. So we've got about 100,000 books. We try to, keep them at a price well below eBay. We're a reader-centric shop. That's why I buy large collections. And a lot of the people that are filling in their runs of books come to my shop because of that reason, and because I'm selling the books at $2, $3, $5 keys, $10 keys, and then usually about half price of what they are on eBay. Now, they may be a 9.8. I don't really look over them that strong, but they might have a few minor flaws. I'm not saying that the books are perfect. I have my wall books of the better stuff, and again, they're still usually 20 to 30% below eBay. But what's going on out there with people, the pumping and dumping is over. It is coming to an end. And my major competition, which is the guy in his house that has no overhead, just his off time from work to compete with me in selling comics, may be coming to an end. They're gonna have to probably ask or get off the pot, They're gonna have to decide on whether they're gonna be real comic book dealers. Even online, being an online dealer doesn't make you not a dealer. But if it's your part-time side gig, really you're just hurting the local comic shop. I've side hustled my whole life, but the way I try to do it is in a very ethical way. People took advantage of the prices that these books got to, and they were way, way overvalued, and now there's a correction. A lot of people say it's a crash. The collector's market isn't a crash, it's a correction. If you look at comics, even in the dead times of comics, they've outpaced the stock market by at least 10%. But that's at a slow, regular burn. And not every book is worth, when Thor, the appearance of the Maniac, because it showed up on a poster in the Loki television show, starts going for $30 and $40. It's just ridiculousness. It's just somebody, out there looking for that quick buck, and it's marketing. It's dirty marketing. Bill Hicks has a really good stand-up comedy bit about marketing, and I'm gonna put that in the bottom, because when I talk about Comicsgate and how I am such not a fan, it's not about their politics. Everybody thinks it's because, I'm woke or this. It's not. It's because of their marketing. You don't hear a peep from them until they got a book on Indiegogo, and then they're stirring the pot, saying terrible things about people. And look, there's people in their club that I don't think are good people or are not good actors. And I don't think that that's the people you'd want to have as customers or associate with them. And when, listen, you lay down with dogs, you wake up with fleas. That's that kind of thing. You lay down with pigs, you end up coming up dirty. There's 1,000 comments about who you hang out with and what's that say about you. Even if you're profiting on them. This happens during wartime. There's profiteers who make money on wartime, selling weapons to both sides and stuff like that, and we talk terrible about those people. Well, if you want a book that doesn't have any of the politics in it, then make a book that doesn't have any politics in it and shut up. Just make the book. If it's a great book, if Cyber Frog was a great book, it would have never stopped printing on Image. It would have lasted as long as Spawn did. Everybody's like, oh, this book is transcendent. The new book from Indiegogo, Cyber Frog, it's a transcendent book. It's not. It's not. Is he a competent artist? Yes. Yeah, he's a competent artist, competent telling storytelling too with his art. Great, make a book and shut up. You know, if you can't get hired somewhere, that's something, you know, that's your problem, right? It's not my problem. Now let's get away from the drama part of it, because, you know, that comes and goes. You know, I can get canceled for hating on Comics Aid, who knows? Those guys are vicious, they come after you, but I'm well able for them. I'm not big enough to care. I mean, so what I really want to talk about is the lie that Marvel and DC is telling with we're selling 75,000 issues of, you know, Spider-Man or any new book that comes out, or Batman, or they're only selling that amount because people are chasing the 1 in 100s, the 1 in 200s. I can tell you, when I go to a convention, on the last day of the convention, when I'm buying long boxes, it is packed full of those issues that they were trying to get $1 for or $2 for, and that I am buying it like 25 to 30 cents a book, maybe less, depending. It's not even selling for what they paid for them. So this is a very tough game to play, where you're counting on selling the 1 in 100, the 2 1 in 50s, the 4 1 in 25s to cover all the books that you bought. But you're just making the regular profit you would have made had you just sold 25 regular books or 30 regular books. But I don't think too many places have 30 consistent readers of a single book that are in a medium to small market. Few in large cities, LA, places in California that have millions of people. New York City, if you've got a shop in there, they get 1,000 books and it's gone in a weekend. They have 8 million customers that they have a chance at, that are riding around New York City within, 100 square miles. You know, recently, another new Carnage #1, and it's straight up Carnage this time, not Carnage white, red, and redder, or Bloody Carnage, or any one of the gazillion names they have for short Carnage books. But this had 8 variants, 8. That's not including store exclusives. Now, I wish I wish Marvel and DC would print where the store exclusives and how many there were, so we get an idea of those numbers. You know, Marvel and DC, whether you destroy some of them or not, they still printed them. So, and they count that when they tell their bosses up at Warner Brothers Discovery, hey, we sold 75,000. That counts the 3,000 that a store bought who destroys 2,000 of them, so they can say it's a 1 in 1,000. Or they destroy 2,400 of them. Or 1,000 of them are trade dress and 600 are Virgin covers. This game has gotten insane. You can't even keep track of it. Let's say it's a really popular new book coming out, or they catch wind that it's a new character is going to be in the book, and 10 different stores do a cover, a variant cover. Plus they put out the 1 in 100s and 200s, and your 3,000 books counts towards your 1 in 100s. So when you buy 3,000 books, you can buy 30 1 in 100s. Well, the 1 in 100s aren't really that rare anymore. If there's 30 of them, one shop has 30 of them, and if 10 of them do the 3,000 books, there's 3,000 of the 1 in 100s. That's not even, there's regular A covers printed on Image, printed on IDW, that are in that range. That's about when they cancel a book, when it gets down to about 3,000, unless the writer or artist who owns the book just keeps it running anyway and is paying for the printing to keep the book alive for whatever reason. There's all IP reasons for it. If they've optioned the book and they want to have a couple of seasons in print before it gets put out, I don't know everything about those contracts, but I know that there's reasons why guys keep books going that aren't selling. And the paper quality is horrendous. They do an all black cover, and most of the ones I got in right out of the box, and it's not Diamond's fault, it's the paper quality fault. But I digress on that. Back to the lie they're telling. So they're telling people that there's 75,000 books being sold. Well, yeah, there's 75,000 books being sold to the stores. That includes all variants and all exclusives. That's not a lot. That isn't. And when you figure how many of them are actually getting bought, it's even smaller. I think probably Spider-Man, and I'd like somebody to prove me wrong. I think Spider-Man and Batman, which are probably two of the largest selling books, are probably readers buying every month. 35,000, which is 0.00, might be another 0.01% of the population.
So you'd mentioned that the comic companies DC, Marvel have been bragging about selling thousands of these comics, but it's only because of the fact that people are looking to buy the 1 in 1,000 or whatever. Is this affecting the stories that are coming out of it? Are we still getting good quality stories? Is it making it so bad stories are advancing because of those sales?
Well, it's pretty complex. So there's human nature, right? So when I go into the back bins and I look, if there's 20 copies of a comic, I go, oh, that was bad. It's just right in my mind. Nobody wanted these, there's 20 of them. So then I'm not even gonna read it, and my mind automatically thinks that this is a bad story because there's still 20 of them here. If this was a great story or something exciting happened in it, or was an iconic story for the all time, there wouldn't be 20 copies left in the bin. So this overselling is all for the shareholders. It's to tell the shareholders we printed this many comics and sold them to the comic shops. They keep talking about they want the real numbers and that the comic shops should come together. And Comics Pro is working on that to come up with the real number of what the real sales of these books are. And then, well, I know a lot of shops that are returning books. I don't return books, but I know a lot of shops that do return books. Where's that number? Who's counting those? You could just count those and subtract them from the books that you did sell that actually didn't come back, so then that's the number that's sold. You know, a lot of these books have full returnability. Well, once you get them returned, subtract them. I guarantee you nobody's keeping track of that number. It's really just a fluff for the shareholders. It's a trick that they've devised to keep their jobs.
So they can still tell which stories are actually the ones that people are liking, not
right.
just through sales.
Yeah. The worst thing is that there may be one. I mean, I can't speak about every single editor out there, but the editors have one job, and it's to keep continuity. And if you're anybody who's been reading Marvel or DC, continuity is completely effed. There's no idea of what's the timeline, where we are at, which voice is Batman's true voice, which one is Spider-Man's true voice. They're in so many books, and the people who are the editors that is their one job, to maintain continuity. And they're suggesting story plots and stuff like that. They're not keeping continuity, and they all should be fired. As soon as continuity falls off, they should lose their job. You're not doing what you're hired to do. Continuity is the most important thing in comics. That's the only way stories make sense. Just take, for example, Firefly, who now everybody loves. Fox Television got all of the episodes of Firefly at once, and then they showed them out of order. And people were so confused, the show did terrible. People still want it to come back. They got a movie. There were so many fans that there's multiple comic books of Firefly because the licensed property is so popular. If your continuity is effed, people can't follow it. And when they can't follow it, they give up. Editors are a big problem in the big companies. That's why some of the greatest stories are in independence right now, because most of those editors aren't trying to affect the continuity of the writer, because it is just his story, it's especially at Image. But I think in the licensed stuff, I do think that the editors have been doing a really good job of keeping the stories on track. And especially in ones where it's a larger world, where you're gonna have to worry about other characters coming in and out. So I think that the independent companies are doing a much better job at editing than Marvel and DC are. These numbers, again, I talk about this all the time, they really don't care about the publishing, but I don't understand it being in a business that's not profitable. And profitable in a meaningful way. They no longer market their marketing books at all. If you go, and I've I keep saying this, but until somebody actually listens, if you go to their Instagram and you go to their Twitter, or now formerly known as Twitter, now X, and go to their page and look, and go down as they advertise their books, not actually buying advertising on X, that's a whole different thing. That might actually work. They're just posting. There's like 3,000 likes. These are the same 3,000 people that are the ride and die crew for Marvel or DC. They'll like everything that comes out, that they put out, because they're fanboys, which is a good thing. I love the fanboys. I was a fanboy for DC in the hardest way until they have completely stomped and broken my heart. That's this business. That's this business. It's funny because I do a show, Comic Talk, about opening a comic shop, and I encourage people to open a comic shop because I want them to do it. I want people who are passionate and love comics to be in the business, to market the books in the correct way. It is a art form of pictures and words that, when put together, some of the greatest stuff comes out. One of the things you have to see is just kind of not a very good segue into, but a lot of the books that are actually doing well these days are all licenses. You know, Skybound is doing Universal Monsters, right? They started with Dracula. It's a good read. Image makes a very nice book. The covers are a harder cardstock. They hold up in shipping. There was not a ton of covers. There were a few more covers and a second printing, but I think that some people slept on the first printing of Dracula, and just like they did of Void Rivals, these went into a second print. Void Rivals may be going to a third print, but as you can see, these are not intellectual property owned by the comic books, by the comic book companies. You know, Universal Monsters, owned by Universal. Energon owns by Hasbro. So Void Rivals, the whole Energon universe that's coming to Image, is licensing, and those books have been doing really well for us. Power Rangers, they were a live action first, and it was called Gotcha Man. I believe it was, no, Gotcha Man was Geoforce.
Super Sentai.
Super Sentai, thank you very much. And from the Peanut Gallery. I can't always remember stuff, and it's good to have people around that can remember. And it was a guy who brought it to America because he saw something in the cartoons when he was watching them, and I believe that he then dubbed not the cartoons, but the live action, and he dubbed them and brought them to America. And it was a while before they were a comic book. They were a comic book in the 90s, but I think that it had been out for quite a while on television. Sonic the Hedgehog started out as a video game, everybody knows that. My Little Pony started out as a toy, then a cartoon, and now a comic book. So the intellectual properties for a lot of the independents are becoming licensing plays. The king of that was Dark Horse back in the day when they had Aliens, Predator, Star Wars. Like, they were really the kings of licensing. And then Disney bought all of that and took away all the licensing, but they've just recently given them back Star Wars. But IDW does really good licensing. When they were doing G.I. Joe, it was really good. Now, since the Energon has moved to Skybound at Image, all your G.I. Joe is going to be coming from them. I thought IDW did a really good job of it. I didn't sell a lot of them, but I thought it was a quality book. The art and the writing was very well done. They need to get back down to the basics. I say this a lot, is that if people forget that we're animals, but human beings are in the animal kingdom, and hence trainable. When they talk about self-help books and all that, you're training yourself to be better. When you go to school, they're training you. And if you go to tech school, you're training. If you go to any job, you have on-the-job training. If you don't give kids an attachment to floppies when they're young, the numbers of readers that we're going to have 10 years from now is going to be smaller and smaller and smaller. Yes, some people find comics later in life, but it is a very small number that find it later on in life. It is people like myself who read them as a very young child, and it took us to places like some people have with books. Look at all the people that are insanely attached to Harry Potter through the books and then the movies, but mostly starting with the books. People were insane for those books. They would sell out in hours. Around Christmas time when a new book came out and it hit Barnes & Noble, boom, man, there was people in a line for it. And everybody's like, oh, books are dying, they are not. I know several novelists that they sell their books and they keep, the business is still there. It's because people fall in love with that medium from a childhood, and then they're trained for that medium. Thank goodness this year it looks like the Free Comic Book Day is going to have more children's books in it. A lot. I have to have like this small, very, Free Comic Book Day. I have a very small section just for kids, and I'll overbuy the kids' books every year so that I have them from year to year, so that I have multiple ones for kids. This is our market, right? There's a lot of great stuff getting done that is very adult. I mean, if you haven't read Plastic, I recommend Plastic and Vinyl and Plush, 3 great books. Click, Click, Boom. It's out currently. You probably can go back and get number 1. I really suggest you go out and find a number 1 at Click, Click, Boom. There's a ton of great stuff for adults to read, but you already have me. You don't have to market to me. You need to market to the next generation. They need to get schools, go back to when, a lot of teachers know and believe that the graphic form of reading helps kids' comprehension. It helps their reading level at a much faster rate than a regular book, especially for kids who have trouble reading, because the pictures tell a large portion of the story. Believe it or not, comics is a very tight-knit community. And although we argue on who would beat who, because we have our favorite characters, we all still really love this art form. And they're not just funny books, right? I'm tired of people saying that. Whenever things get heated and people get into their panties in a bunch, that people are like, oh, they're just funny books. Let's relax. They're just funny. They are not. They are not. This is a serious art form, and it's, and I've said it before in another video, it is a true American invention. Comic books were invented in America. It was a huge source of income for a large number of people in America. The Library of Congress has a huge collection of comics. A good portion of them coming from Steve Geppi, who everybody craps on because were mad at Diamond for whatever reason, and how great it is to be at these other distributors who we have no personal contact with. Even when I went to New York, it was great that they gave me a 4-day ticket. Fantastic. Gave me a free 4-day ticket. I went. I didn't meet anybody from Lunar. I met people from Comics Pro, and that was great. It was great meeting other people in this industry. I was happy to be there to learn from Lunar about, what they're coming up with in the future through their distribution. Sadly, I learned very little. They put on a show for the publishers, okay, but I really didn't get to talk to anybody from Lunar, and I've never talked to anybody from Random House. And you can't call them. You have to email, and then you have to wait for a response. And then you have to follow up if you don't get a response. Is there less problems, so there doesn't need to be a connection? Okay, but maybe I'm old school. I just like a personal connection with a business I'm giving thousands of dollars to. I say this again, is that to take 35% from DC, profit 35% on selling DC books, and actually mostly have to warehouse them, I can't sell those books at half price and even recoup my money, because I'm not paying half price because I only get 35% off. So I can't run a 50% sale on DC books because I'm losing money. The business is very different than people believe. They think it's much bigger than it is. They think it's much more profitable than it is. Yeah, every once in a blue moon, we might get a very big comic book that comes in that we bought from a collection, which we'll have to pay for. Then if we really want to sell it for top dollar, we'll have to grade. The grade comes back lower than we expected when we bought it. We lose there. If it comes out higher, it's a home run, then we do much better. Then we have to send it to an auction house or sell it on eBay. Both also still take a percentage. So I've paid a percentage for it. To grade it, I've paid a percentage. And now when I sell it, I have to pay a percentage. I don't say this to make people not want to get into this business. I say this to prepare people for this business. And if you're going to your local comics shop, understand they are not making a fortune. Just look at what they're driving. That's all you got. Just see what he's driving. Unless he's independently wealthy and decided to open a comic shop, it's usually not, I drive a 2016 Ford Transit Connect so that I can go to conventions. It's got Haven for Heroes on the side of the van. I love it, but it's not a millionaire's car. And you won't make a million in this business, but you'll meet a lot of great people who are passionate about the same thing you're passionate about. I wish that everybody would share this with the comic book companies. There's a lot of comic book companies that are on the brink. There is a lot of comic shops, at least 5, possibly 6 stores on the northeast coast have gone out of business this year. 5 to 6. One which was I really wanted to interview them. I had reached out to them and I never could put it together, but Pulp 716 out of the Buffalo area. They had, I think, 2 or 3 stores, and their shop is closed up. And it's sad to see because they're a female owner who was very innovative and making a lot of new readers. And I really appreciate that, and I really respected her a lot. And it's funny how people are just gone in a moment. And this business, I will always read comics. I will always buy comics. As the market changes and the prices are in the toilet, it's great because I'm going to get books I never thought I'd own before. And I'm going to sell them to somebody who really wants them, who's going to read them and not seal them in plastic and put them on the wall. Yeah, if you didn't know, I'm really against grading books, but it's different for sports cards. Sports cards, there's a front and a back. When they put them in a plastic slab, you can see both. In a comic, all that art in the center of that book is never seen again unless somebody breaks it out. Not only that, but you can't get a personalized signature on it because everybody's afraid that it won't be worth anything. But it's worth to the person. I get my books personalized to me that I like. When Scott Snyder was in the store, he was willing to sign every Scott Snyder book I had in the joint. I could have just brought it over to him in a stack and he would have signed everything. I had him sign Dark Spaces, which was him and Hayden Sherman's book. The art and the story were, man, phenomenal. I really loved that book. And I just had him sign it to me. And now it's mine. I keep it. Love this art form. Be passionate about this art form. And keep reading comics.